thank you for reaching out. Thank you for doing the coverage you do. I appreciate it. There's not enough people sharing this work outside of what we typically can receive from the Star Tribune and Axios and others. So I appreciate you doing this in the first place. Um, Three priorities. There's three or four I talk about a lot. Public safety, public safety being an entire infrastructure. There's a big difference between public safety and police, but public safety, affordable housing, and then the same thing, I'll say affordable housing is a lot more than just our unhoused neighbors. It is people working at a coffee shop in Minneapolis that can't pay rent in the same city, like all affordable housing. Obviously, AMI a part of that. Um, and the third one, I struggle, frankly, to talk about either public school education um, or small business like growth. But I feel like I've been saying public school education more, which I want to be clear because someone will go off in the comments right away and say like the school board controls that, it's not us. But I think that's the furthest thing. I think that's actually abdicating of the role that the mayor has within the city of Minneapolis. So what will mine? How will mine look different? Listen, like I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with city council members, with folks that have worked in the city that aren't council members, and specifically for council members, I'm hearing that just like we don't have consistent meetings with the mayor. Like the amount of times city council members meet with the mayor on a one-to-one basis, or even with the mayor's chief of staff, is like non-existent nearly. I should say all city council members. Maybe there's some that he does meet with, but I think the first step starts with repairing and improving these relationships that currently are non-existent or are incredibly fractured. And I appreciate that you've done the research. I've seen some of your videos covering you. I don't want to belabor all the talking points I always say, but I've sat down and had a beer, a breakfast, or coffee with every single sitting city council member. Not like a phone call, like let's meet. I want to meet face to face and talk about the issues that I see in the city. And frankly, that's the first thing that'll be different between my city as mayor and what we currently experience. And then obviously the mayor and I have different perspectives on leadership, and I think that is one of the biggest differences that I will also bring to the table. Then there's also a difference of priority, right? Like when I say public safety, I mean you know, the entire encompassing sphere of public safety. But then when I talk about students and youth, also the before and after school programs and summer programs that ensure that we don't need the level of public safety that we do right now, or the kind of public safety that we talk about right now. Um, so there's a lot to unpack, but and I'm sure we'll dive into all of it, but that's kind of just the high level of what will be different. And frankly, I don't think any of the individual three things that I listed will get better if we don't have a better working relationship between city council and the mayor's office.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that answer makes sense. And I wanna dig deep on that, on the piece about public safety in particular. So you've said, so I've watched a couple of um, uh, mayoral forums that you've been a part of, and in them, you've said in a couple that you think that we need to hire more police officers in the city of Minneapolis. And in particular, one that was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, you talked specifically about the need to get more officers into the city, in part by making officers from rural cities feel comfortable in Minneapolis and like in
Mm.
perspectives we welcome and that the culture will welcome them. And I'm wondering, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I'll start by saying I don't remember. Listen, we've done so many forums, I don't remember which one you're talking about. But let me start by saying in the public safety system, I believe that we need to maximize all things. So we take things off of officers' plates so that we can retain the officers that we currently have to do the actual crime solving. I'm talking about the domestic violence that we have not seen addressed within the city. I'm talking about like that kind of stuff we need officers for. But before we do all that, I think building trust, and I try to say it's a two-way street. Like we have to trust officers, but officers also have to trust that we want them here if they're going to be here. I do believe that's in that statement. But I like the order of operations of the sentence, I think is important. I've sat in the 911 call center and I've watched the calls come in. And when I watched them come in, I saw that sending the BCR team to so many calls was vitally important and would send a safer individual into those interactions than a police officer with a gun. And I believe so deeply in the need for that. That's what my day job is about, is ensuring that these interactions with officers go better. Um, And when I saw it, it was so amazing to me. I was like, I have to do a ride along with the BCR. And so I went and did a ride along with the BCR as well. And the amount, it's so funny we talk about, I've never said this, I don't think. We talk so much about the need to strengthen the separation ordinance with our police department regarding ICE and federal agents coming here. We also need to strengthen the relationship with the BCR and the police department, the separation or the order of operations between them as well. We went on one call and everyone showed up. The EMS, the police, and behavioral
Mhm.
crisis response team. And the BCR took control of the situation really well. And then there became like this weird power struggle. And because there's no firm rule set around like the BCR being able to say, no, this is our call, we're going to take over. And oh, there we go. Oh, now I just see myself bigger. That's scary. There's no there's no order of operations. Like there's no one saying like we get all say in this situation. It prevents them from being successful as well. So there's a lot of stuff we have to do there. And then to your other point of saying more welcoming. Listen, I I come from a civil rights lawyer and background. I was a part of every march and every protest. Like I believe deeply in the relationship between officers and the residents that they're supposed to protect has to be improved. And that is like the fundamental foundation that the residents have to feel safer. I try to say that each and every time. Now, if we are going to hire more officers after we build up the PCR team, after we bring in the homelessness response team, first of all, and rename it, but bring in the homelessness response team and expand that so we can have calls actually going to those individuals instead of police officers, then we can build out the department to actually address things like domestic violence, like the physical assaults that happen, like our neighbors in Ward 8 that get shot by their neighbors, and the police don't go and get that individual for 5 days. Like those are the things that I want them responding to. Um, but I appreciate it. And I actually receive your criticism well. I think that the sentence can sound like I like I intend to capitulate or beg an officer from Farmington to see that the black folks in Minneapolis are great or that the immigrant community is great. Like that is not our job. It's more to let them know that we don't have a general disdain for an entire public safety system, and we're willing and able to build one out in a place where they're held accountable if their actions are incorrect.
Yeah, yeah, and that makes sense to me. And I want to. So the next question I have follows up on something you said. So you talked about the BCR, and so you've actually before I ask that,
Yeah.
do you want to increase the number of police officers in the city of Minneapolis?
Yes, I think that we should, and I want to be clear, I do think that we should increase the number of police officers. I think every single candidate says that. Every one of us, the four leading fundraisers, I'll say, because I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
Right, right,
Um,
right. We have a ton of
uh,
people in the race, but
and, and listen, I'm the lowest of the four. There's three city council race, challengers that raise more money than I have. So, um, I think we all say that, and I think but it's all about the other parts of the apparatus that we have to improve first, being the trust from the residents, trusting, and then also the entire other systems. I think Omar, sorry, we've become friends. I should be more respectful. Senator Fate, he says it well. I think often in on this topic where he's like, we could build out this BCR and this team so well, and the homelessness response team after we rename it so well that we won't feel like we need this much, but we aren't going to know until later.
Right, right, right. So I think your order of operations is like building up BCR and other
Public safety infrastructure.
yeah, the other parts of the public safety infrastructure, and then assessing where and how police are needed. Do I have that order of operations right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think it will be a steady building at the same time. I want to be clear about that. I
Yep.
think they'll both be going up. I don't think it's going to be like moratorium on hiring police until we do this. I want to be clear. I think it'll be happening in concert,
Right.
but the focus needs to be on building out those other app and these systems. I'm sure you saw it, but when I was in the 911 call center, the lack of human beings that work in that place is it's shocking. One guy that works in there has worked 5 years of overtime in 11 years that he's worked there. It's almost 17 years. He was like, it's almost been 17 years in total that I've worked here, and I've only been here for a little over 11. The mandatory hold folks for 12 hours on 8-hour shifts, three out of their four shifts. It's like they are and it's not trauma-free work. Like
Mm.
this whole infrastructure needs so much help. And we gotta do it faster.
Does and this is a question for you. Does the our 911 response, are those uniformed officers or are they civilians who are part of the police department? What's the
They are civilians that are part of just public safety generally. They
okay?
aren't police officers. They aren't sworn. They never went to like the police academy. They are not a part of the police department at all.
Okay.
In fact, one of them said like it's a great way to learn how and if you want to become one, because if you want to nerd out, because I loved learning this, and I feel like more people
Yeah, please.
should have the opportunity to do it. What happens is you call, and it goes to what are called a call taker. And so when I was there, I think there's like nine or on shift at that time, and the call taker takes information like, okay, da 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 da. It's I'll give an example of one. It's like someone who's like has dependency on alcohol, and they've fallen and broken their foot, they think, but they aren't responding to calls anymore. And so that call taker transfers it to the person sitting across the room at dispatch and says, here's the person, here's the location, here's all the information. I think that you should send EMS and police because there might be someone might have pushed them. I don't know how they fell. And then that person dispatches it, like they radio, like on the radio to the officer's
Mm,
shoulder and tell them where to go and what to do, or the BCR to go, and they're sending them the information to their computer.
mm,
And so those are two different jobs as well. And when I was sitting in there, I talked to one of the guys later. He said there was only four call takers on a couple
mm,
Mondays ago. There's four people taking the calls, and he's like, and they have a shot clock that shows the waiting calls and how long they've been waiting. And he's like, that shot clock was running today.
mm,
It's wild. But sorry, the reason I started that story was they're like, what a great way to learn how to be, if you want to, and how to become a police officer. You see the calls they go on, you see the types of things they're dealing with, you learn how to be like, the little code stuff like 538 going to alpha, going to blah, 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 blah. It again, it's a pipeline of having a great job. And if you want to become a different part of public safety, whether it's the BCR or police officer, you can learn if you really want to do it.
So how do you get more folks? So if we are shifting then the focus from like police officers to maybe folks who are working in the dispatch centers, like how do you imagine building that capacity back up?
Well, the first thing is they just cut the one of the open position for the 911 dispatch center. They cut that from the budget. And so
Mm,
that is issue one. We have to allocate budget for them to actually hire people. And here's the thing, like I really call BS on the we don't have the budget, because if you're
mm,
mandatory holding people for overtime, you are paying it anyways. Like that is, I'm a professor of entrepreneurial finance. You are that money is coming out of your P&L on your profit loss statement
mm,
every month, because you're still paying someone to do twice the amount of work. Often you're paying twice the amount. Like we have to allocate the budget first and then do direct hiring. And when it comes to the BCR, you don't even have to be trained in or have a degree in mental health work. You can start as an apprentice and apprentice your way up through the program as well. There are so many opportunities where we can pull members from the community. And I got to say, Canopy, the people that have been hired to be the
yeah.
BCR team, it's wildly diverse, and I've never met more calm individuals. Whenever you hear people be like, well, no one wants to go into a mental health call and worry for their physical safety, cool as a cucumber. They weren't worried about anything. They were ready, and they actually were like, the officers came in, they're like, we're good, can you leave the room please, like we have this. It was a high school. They're like, can you leave the room, we have this. Same with the MS, they're like, we got it. We have such an opportunity, and I think I've said this a lot. When we have multiple problems, often one thing will solve multiple. Like, how are we going to talk about youth engagement and lack of job opportunities leading to crime when we don't have some kind of direct pilot into this program for Minneapolis North High School? Like, how are we talking about vacant buildings and a homelessness crisis at the same time? It
Mm.
does not make sense, and we need to be the connective tissue building these things together.
Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I've got my next question is it requires some preamble. Forgive me in advance. So
Yeah,
in the you all did a mayoral forum with I think it was joined between the Striv and NPR. I think just a couple of days ago.
yeah.
And during that forum, you said, and I'm quoting directly, you said we should have dedicated teams addressing the open air drug market, which is what the question was about. And then you followed up and said we should have teams addressing things like broken windows in this moment. And so for me as a sociologist, right, like my ears perked up because in doing that, you were signaling to this
Mm,
the broken windows policing theory, right? That there's like a need to address the physical signs of disorder in order to decrease or prevent crime, right?
mm,
So, and why my ears perked up is because I think been a lot of evidence since the '80s when this theory was promulgated, right? That broken windows policing often results in over policing, particularly of marginalized communities. It puts a strain on resources that already exist, right? And it burdens lower income communities. And so I would love to hear from you how you think broken windows policing could be
mm.
useful for Minneapolis in this moment.
Yeah, I appreciate again the feedback on that answer, and I want to first call out that uh, addressing an ongoing spree of very specific crime
Mm-hmm.
versus using policing to reduce crime are two very different things that I'm not connecting there. I have said in like all the videos I post on social media and all of the things that I do not believe policing is what it will lower crime. It can stop the active crime that's happening. That's why I say a dedicated team to be like, well, yo, who's the one person that keeps breaking these windows? Let's find out. And in the same video, when I talk about that, I talk about restorative justice. And when my car has been stolen 3 times from in front of my house in that video, I said I'd hire that person as an intern at my company if they found them. Like, this work is to directly find out who's the person, and in my opinion, deliver services, not punishment, to make the situation better. Should we find that one individual? But I have never, or I never mean to imply if I have, and it feels like I have here, and so I want to take ownership of that. I never want to imply that more policing will reduce crime. I have long said that is the work that we have seen in Baltimore. That is extending rec hours. That is summer programs that not only give you paying jobs, but give you resume builders to go on and do the next thing that you want to do. It is ensuring that our Minneapolis public school students that walk in, Black students that walk into a Minneapolis high school don't graduate at a 60% rate like they most recently have been noted at. Like those are the things, the only things that will be successful at like reducing crime in the city. Now, if we're talking about when I talk about the dedicated teams, because I want to make it clear that I'm not saying like the broken window theory to your point. What I'm talking about that is like the perception of people saying like this city isn't safe or the police department isn't doing things for me. It's because when you call for the broken window, there's no people to investigate. There's no person looking for the perpetrator. Like when my car was stolen, I was like, yo, the GPS says it's downtown.
Right.
And the officer was like, okay, you have to meet me there. And I went and drove and met her there. And she said, open the car to look like to see if anything's dangerous is in it. And I opened, I was like, no, everything's here. She's like, all right, good to go. And she left. And like I just got in my car and drove away. That is not investigating, right? But I want to be clear because I agree with you. Like more police officers does not reduce crime. It is the predeterminators of underlying issues that reduce crime. Just like your zip code is a better indicator for your health outcome than your genetic code. Like those are the things that make
Right.
crime go up.
How do we like how do we I agree with you, right? 100% agree with you that like we need to be addressing those root causes, particularly like for young folks, and like making sure that like they have the support that they need. I think I'm wondering like what are the specific ways that we like go about doing that, particularly like within this city, right? Like, and what are the and why haven't strategies to tackle these root causes been successful thus far?
Yeah, when it comes to schools, I think the strategies haven't been successful because we haven't long-term implemented things. I think all too often people expect like we started a new summer program and crime will reduce by 40%. Like we have generations of folks that need assistance and it's more than just a summer program will turn everything around. And you have to allow this to marinate and to grow into success. Listen, the before and after school programs, it's just not tenable. We haven't implemented any kind of before and after school programs connected to the city or the county that will be successful in ensuring that someone has a consistent place to go and grow, not just go, but also to grow. Roosevelt has like a pilot version of it right now, where directly across the street is a Hennepin County Library, and you can go and you can have tutoring sessions like that. We have not implemented that citywide. And the other thing is we get like and in my day job, I get frustrated with this too. Like we get pilot fatigue. We love to pilot, pilot, pilot. and then don't have enough money to support it, and then it falls to the wayside, and then we claim it wasn't successful. It's like we stopped funding it.
Mhm.
The Stable Homes, Stable Schools program, it it's being touted, and like I want to say, like I applaud the work of housing 6,700 in students that otherwise would have unstable or no housing. It is now $3.2 million underwater because it was like a pilot level funding rather than fully funding the project. And so right now, if you want to get in that program, there's a pause on the vouchers. We aren't even doing it anymore. And
Mhm.
so, and this goes back to like the larger like budget conversation too, where we struggle to, and this is very frustrating to me. It's one of my most frustrating things. It's like when we say we're going to allocate $3.2 million to stable homes, stable schools, and allocate $7 million to building these affordable housing units. And if one program does way better than we thought, if we gave out way more vouchers than we intended with the dollars that we gave to that, then we have to take dollars from a project that is not working or is falling way short of what we're doing and ensure that we're investing deeply in the thing that's working. It's like, Zig Ziglar, like if you don't know what you're aiming at, you'll hit it every time. We just don't even have goals that are set for success. And I'm not saying we have to abandon everything that doesn't work right away. Like I said, we shouldn't just pilot ourselves to death, but we have to be in a situation where we're willing to reinvest in things that are working.
Right. Right. Not just give it a little bit of money and see what happens, and then not continue to look at its impact, support it if it's having the impact that you want to see. That makes a lot of sense for me.
Yeah.
I wanna shift gears a little bit and talk now about housing. So in particular, and I got to talk with Senator Fate just the other day, and I got to ask him this question. So I'm really excited to hear your answer as well. Like, so we all know that Mayor Fry has established policies and practices that work to evict our unhoused neighbors from encampments, and so I'm wondering how, if at all, your approach to encampments will look different.
Yes. I believe we need solutions, not sweeps. I believe we need housing first solutions that are low barrier. And then once they're there, we have to have services directly in proximity. That was a whole bunch of buzzwords, but I'm told I have to list all of those first before I start explaining them. So what does that look like? Uh, if someone has coexisting needs, if they have addiction services needs and they have mental health service needs that we need to address, the last thing we should be doing is making them address those before we get them inside. We need a shelter or a location for them to go that is low barrier. I always say this is like a game of musical chairs, and there's only 9 chairs and there's 10 people walking around them, and one of them has a broken foot, and then when the music stops and that person doesn't get a seat, we're always like, oh, you have a broken foot, of course you didn't get a seat. No, we have to get another chair and then address the broken foot. Like that is the order of operations that is successful in this moment. And we can't bring someone to a safe location once they agree to go that is in Southeast Minneapolis and then tell them their addiction services meeting or location is in Northeast Minneapolis. Like it just isn't going to lead to success at all. And we have to understand that it takes time and work. This isn't going to happen overnight. You could go to Betty Ford, and there's only a 10% chance that you will have that there will be no relapse in your future. But in the second time and the third time, it goes up to 70% as you continue to be there. We have to be the same way. It is like chopping down a tree. I always say you have to keep swinging, swing after swing after swing. You never know which one is actually going to make the tree fall. And we have absolutely lost faith in the way this city addresses these things, and I think rightfully so. In the same way that we lost faith in public safety in 2020, we feel that way again with our unhoused neighbors. So we have to do this on what is called a by name approach. That means when you go to an encampment and there's 38 people, you walk up to the first person and you have your notebook and you say, "Is your name? It's Sarah, right? Okay, Sarah. Tell me why you aren't ready to go into this housing situation. Why would this make you feel uncomfortable?" Okay, you are in a committed relationship and it's a women's only shelter and you'd rather sleep outside with your loved one than go inside by yourself. Okay, the next day you come back, "Hi Sarah, here for day 2," and you document it and you explain again and you give another offering and you do it again and again and again. And as you're doing it, you're not just coming in as like an enforcer or a bully, you're delivering services. And these services that you're delivering, whether we're talking about hand washing stations, sanitary places to go to the bathroom, obviously a place to accept needles, as you're delivering that, you're building trust. But I believe I'm delivering that not to make people want to stay in encampments. I'm doing that to build trust to help them move to a healthier place for them. That is how we should be addressing it. And if we aren't doing that time and time again on a by name approach, I think we're failing. And then if something horrible happens, like it did the shooting the other day, like I want the city council member and myself to stand on a podium and say, we are so sorry this happened. We've been working so hard. We've gone to that site this many times. Obviously, we're not going to show names, but like these are the people and these are the services that we asked and documented and provided. And we tried again and again and again. And we're going to come again tomorrow. That is the work that we have to do within the city. And the obvious part of all this is like we don't have any staff to do it. We have 4 people on our homelessness response team, and more people live in my house. You can probably hear them in the background right now. So
Yeah.
that's what I think. I would love to hear.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
So,
Will you conduct um, um, encampment evictions?
uh, no, so I want to make sure that we're working out the same definitions. Uh, I've been an attorney for a long time, and I've worked actually in evictions before. And when you evict someone by law, if they are, if they are staying at a the long extended stay hotels. You have to go and collect all of their belongings and you have to store it in a location and you have to store it for a statutorily required amount of time. You have to tell them where they are. You have to give them access to that. Um, if it got to a place where there was a shooting and 8 people were shot and I believe one died and it becomes a crime scene, bulldozing and throwing things away is not it. You would have to make that a crime scene, collect evidence, remove people for their own safety, and put them in another location that is safe and healthy, and then store their things for them and keep them for them. Now, I don't know what we call that. I don't know if that is clearing, if that is sweeping, if that is evicting. That is preserving everyone's belongings, ensuring they have a safe place to stay, and not putting a fence around something and then bulldozing and throwing it away like that. And I want to be clear. Because I would be lying if I said if there's a shooting, we'll go in and we'll try to collect shell casings and like we'll walk away. I don't think that's responsible. But that is how I view it. Like the idea of throwing someone's goods away, and we've heard Senator Fate talk about. I haven't had those conversations, but I've heard him talk about heartbreaking things that have been thrown away in this situation. That ain't it.
Right. So to be clear, like let's say there's a situation. So I live in South Minneapolis, along Hiawatha. There is currently and have been in the past encampments that have sprung up over there. Let's say there's not sort of an incidence of violence, but it's just sort of growing in there's an encampment growing in a really visible area. Would you have police or other city officials move in to break up that encampment if there was no violence?
If there's no violence, which we would be checking for, right? When we're doing the by name approach, we're finding out if someone is being assaulted. We're interviewing people to make sure that they aren't being trafficked. We're doing that work in this process as well. No, then I wouldn't. My job is to ensure that they move on their own to another location by delivering services time and time again. If there is violence, it has to be broken up. Any kind of violence like that, I don't think preventing or allowing someone to be victimized consistently is not acceptable.
Right.
But delivering those services will break up those encampments, in my opinion, and that's what we have to keep doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Are you? So, I mean, I think a question that naturally builds off of that is like, what is your specific plan, if elected mayor, to improve the supply, both the supply and access to affordable housing?
Yeah, I think to build the supply, we have to, when we talk about all affordable housing, not just when we move away from the conversation just about encampments. One of the things I really believe is we don't have enough units in this moment. Oftentimes, the mayor talks about like we've had 8.5 times the amount of deeply affordable housing built since he has taken office, and the numbers on that are literally it went from 29 new units per year to like 285 new units per year. Like that is, we need tens of thousands of units in the city, in the Twin Cities right now. That is woefully short. So we have to do that at a much quicker level. I think we have to work with for-profit
I can
and nonprofit
oh, there you go.
organizations to do this work. I always talk about it like an ecosystem. Like we wouldn't have had the civil rights movement if we just had Rosa Parks or if we just had Martin Luther King. We needed Malcolm X as well, and we have to attack it in that way from a building more units in the city of Minneapolis. And the other really important part too is in Southwest Minneapolis in Linden Hills, what they did with the 2040 plan is it was and I always say it's like Obamacare, like it was a really great start. And I'm glad that we had a great start, but like we have to tweak it to make sure it actually reaches the intended purpose. What often happens is they tear down a one or two house single family unit
Mm,
and then they put up a quadplex or like four townhomes in a string
right.
and they each sell for $800,000. So it's like, oh great, we changed the zoning law. Now I can put more super expensive things on this plot. We need to refine the 2040 plan and how we're addressing it to ensure that when we're doing that work, it's actually aimed at affordable housing structures in various neighborhoods, not just in certain ones in this moment as well. And we have to incentivize and promise builders that we'll do the things to make them more likely to do it. Listen, they'll turn down a project if they think that it's going to be way too costly for them because of permits taking too long, because the inspections taking too long, because us not being able to get there and to deliver the things to keep the projects on time. And we have to improve that in the city of Minneapolis.
Mm. Do you support rent control?
I do not think strict rent stabilization as presented is going to be the thing to help us in this moment. I think when I was just talking about like permits and inspection times,
Yeah.
preventing people from building, I think that also would stifle the building more than it would help in this moment. I want to be clear. I think rent control is a lever that addresses the affordable housing
Mhm.
crisis that we're facing. But I think like, or I should say maybe like it's a medicine that you can take, but I think the side effects in this moment would be worse than taking a different kind of medicine. And so the other kinds of medicine, I think, are ensuring that that we're protecting tenants from being evicted wrongfully and ensuring that we have legal representation, as I provided my day job, legal representation to those individuals so that they actually have a fighting chance when they're going to court or being forced in that situation. I think we have to enforce rules against landlords that are making their spaces unlivable and trying to force people out just to raise up the rent on a different person. But what it would do, in my opinion, to stifle the growth of building in the city when that's what we need the most right now is not worth it on the other end. Do I think we should do things like TOPA or like the work with EPNI? Like absolutely. I just think strict rent control would do more harm in this moment than good compared to other things that we could try.
So I want to restate what I think your argument is there. So you're saying that rent control would disincentivize developers from building.
Nonprofit and for-profit developers,
Okay.
yes.
Why do you think that is? I want to tease this out.
Yeah, I think economists have reviewed it more than I have to
Mm.
say that the prevention of building new units that you know will not be able to increase at the rate that you think they should or eventually have a return for you prevents them from wanting to build in those areas. The other thing too, I have a friend who just bought a townhome. And he wants to keep his consistent at a place and let it stay there for a long amount of time without having to raise the rent on the person. And if they keep forcing him to raise the rent more than he would otherwise, then it's not going to be helpful for him or that tenant to keep a good tenant in the place that they are at. It can create higher turnover for those individuals as well. And the economics that we saw in St. Paul and what economists say collectively says that it will prevent growth from happening in the city of Minneapolis. Now, I'm not just talking about for-profit organizations as well. We can ask nonprofit co- builders to come in and build in their own structure that can keep things affordable. But when we're telling all across to do it, it makes it incredibly difficult to foster the growth.
But then what about the so then the argument is about new development, but then what do you do with existing structures with landlords who are continuously like raise the rent on tenants who already live there, like what you just said, people who might want to evict someone to like get a new tenant in there. It's like, well, I don't know if I totally buy the argument about development, but let's say I did. Like, what do you do with the existing housing supply and the way that rents are rising and currently unaffordable for folks in Minneapolis?
Yeah, I think the short term goal is to have more of those low those low AMI buildings being built up in this moment to try to give people more options. And I don't mean more options the way of like I'm expecting people to move. I mean more options, and you cannot possibly keep raising the rent because the competitive rates of other affordable housing are present and able to be lower than that and give people more options in that moment. On top of that, I think we have to do a lot of other structures with currently built buildings to give people discounts based on state grants that we can receive. I was just talking to um, uh, some seniors that were talking about state grants that could be given to lower the taxes on their townhomes that they have, because so many seniors in Minneapolis have townhomes that they then rent out the other side, and lowering that can give them more opportunities to lower the rent for or to keep the rent low for their current tenants. There are other things that we can do to try to prevent that, but my fear is we are already short tens of thousands of units in the city right now, and I don't want it to get worse.
Mm. So in the absence, so in the absence of building new affordable housing, your options for limiting or making housing affordable is like, it sounds like maybe tweaking around the margins as opposed to addressing some of the structural concerns that I think folks are rightfully raising. Particularly, I'm thinking about students in the Dinkytown area who've like had a
Mm.
lot of issues with like landlords who are like, being really exploitative, right? So it sounds like, I guess what I'm hearing you say is like there's no sort of structural way to address the housing affordability crisis as currently constituted, um, because you don't support the sort of limiting or the capping of rent.
Yeah. So when you say the exploitative landlords in Dinkytown, do you mean exploitative as in they're raising rent consistently, or do you mean the status of the building? What do you
I mean,
mean?
I think I'm referring to like it's a both and situation, and not, and I don't mean to call out like Dinkytown as if that's the only place
No.
it's happening, but like as an example, like both exploitation and raising rent for students.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think I said a little bit ago that I believe that we have to work harder to hold landlords accountable when they're doing the wrong things. I talked to someone whose building had black mold, their door was kicked in and broken and it wasn't getting fixed, all of these issues. And when that was happening, they'd rather pay fees. I met the one of the residents at a coffee shop at Fragment, and they would rather pay a fee than have that addressed. And I think what we should do is escalate the punishments, fines, and hold landlords accountable when they're doing those things to actually make the teeth realer in this situation, and hold people accountable in a real way when it comes to people actually not taking care of buildings to the level that they should. On the other end, when it talks about how if the only I don't believe the only thing that we can do to prevent landlords from increasing rent within the city is putting a cap on it. Do I think that we should incentivize them not to do that by asking them or by having more units around them that will offset the common price? For sure, but beyond the like slumlord aspect of decaying buildings, I'd be open to hear any opportunity or things that we could do to outside of rent stabilization to you know hold them accountable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like it's not. I don't know if I think it reasonable or even practical really to like ask landlords or incentivize them in any way other than legally to avoid raising rents, right? Because we live in a capitalist society. Like people are incentivized to raise the rent as much as possible, right? To continue getting a return on it. And so I think that I think that I'm skeptical of any solution short of rent control or rent freezes or rent caps, right? Because without that, then landlords don't really have any incentive or slash reason to not continue to raise rents as they see fit, right? If there are no rules as to what you can do and how much you can raise, then you just get to really decide how much you want that to be, right? Which like is part of the reason, not the only reason, of course, that we are in this housing affordability crisis, and that like there are no rules that have been enacted in a widespread way to protect renters, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was finished. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I agree. And listen, if you're staying in a unit and the landlord and you're re-signing a lease, I want to ensure that it is not going to go up at a rate that's exorbitant. And we have to ensure that we're fighting for that and any other proposals that are offered or thoughts that can be made. And that's why, when I met with Council President Payne, uh, when I sat down across from him, he was like, I think rent stabilization is the right thing to do. And I was like, I don't. And then we debated for a while, like a similar conversation to this. And he was like, if we have other things to explore, will you continue to explore them with me and try to find some kind of ground where we feel like we're actually making progress, even if we don't agree on this strict rent stabilization, whether it's, I'm using his words generally, I'm paraphrasing his words, whether it is a form of rent stabilization that doesn't that applies to new buildings or old buildings, or a cap for a certain amount of time, or a one that rolls up for a certain period. Like he was like, will you have conversations about some kind of structure that can ensure that it is more affordable? And I told him, yeah, I'm here for the conversation. And that's why, we've agreed to he's agreed to endorse me. Granted, I'd say this with pride, he didn't endorse me first or second, but it's the willingness to have the conversation that, again, to the very first question that we had in this meet or in this conversation was, I'm willing to be a leader that will come to the table and try to find a solution and not say my way or the highway. And the encouragement that I've heard from Council President Payne and others is that we will do that work together.
Yeah, yeah. And so recognizing that we've got about 3 minutes left, I have one more question for you. Well, actually, I have two more, but if I can get this one in fast, I'll do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So so as we've been talking about, you said you are not in favor of rent control. Also, in the NPR slash Strib panel that you did, you also stated that you do not support setting a specific minimum wage target. And I've read elsewhere that you said you also didn't like the composition of the Labor Standards Board. And unclear, do you support a wealth tax?
Uh, okay, so the first one was the what was the first question?
The
Oh,
so
minimum wage.
so there's the question about minimum wage. And I wasn't asking a question, but just stating you said that you don't support rent control, nor do you like the composition of the Labor Standards Board. And so I'm asking, do you support a wealth tax?
I don't think wealth tax I would put in the same category as the as rent stabilization. Like it's a lever to gain more taxes in this moment, but I think there's a whole bunch of other levers that we could pull before that that would be more efficient in this moment. I want the 30% of the revenue that we spend in the city of Minneapolis comes from like property taxes from individuals, comes from those dollars, and 70% comes from elsewhere. And I think we need to run full steam at getting the additional 70%, where they're talking about bonds, grants, other stuff. I think raising taxes additionally in that way is not the most efficient way to get more dollars in the building. And to the minimum wage question that you asked, um, I am all for readdressing minimum wage year after year after year and moving it in the way that we should move it, without a doubt. I actually just don't like any goals. I like, even when we talk about like the 2040 plan, it's like none of us will be in this city leadership anymore. And when it doesn't, we don't hit that goal. It's like, oh, well, I guess we didn't hit it. Sorry about that. And I want to do things on a by year basis to assess and move it in the right direction, because it might be higher, it might be lower. But no, I appreciate the question on that.
Yeah. And so, really quickly, I want to give you the last minute. What's one thing you want folks to know before the election on Tuesday?
Um, I want people to know that we have an opportunity to. I'm running because I think we need new leadership that, regardless of political ideologies, will come to the table and have the conversation. And I am the firmest believer. I think that's the lawyer in me. Like, if you present better evidence, and I'm always willing to be convinced otherwise. I am willing to move in the right direction, and I hope anyone else. And what I've seen from the city council members is they believe the same thing. And we need leadership that's willing to come to the table like that. I think even this, like, I've seen the last two videos you've done, and I know that you are critical or you disagree with some of my viewpoints on specific
Yeah,
things, but I'm showing up to the interview and having the
and I
conversation. Like,
appreciate it.
that's
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
what we need in this moment. And frankly, you have a chance to rank your ballot, and I might be first, and I might be second, and I might be third, but I want to be on your ballot because I want you to know that there are people, and I want to prove, obviously, to the larger ecosystem that just slight disagreements on specific things doesn't mean we can't make large leaps and bounds forward on a lot of different topics, and that's what I'm here for. And I would challenge anyone to say, I want everyone to go into spaces where they're going to be challenged because that just makes your understanding or argument better. I went into one of these about TOPA the other day, and a guy said, "I'm really excited about your campaign, but I disagree with your belief that TOPA will be a good idea." I was like, "All right, let's have the conversation." I left it still feeling that way, but you have the conversation, and I'm going to be the mayor that's willing to do that.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for joining me tonight, Jazz. I reached out to your campaign, and both you and your campaign was like great to like work with and setting this up. And so just yeah, I appreciate you being willing to like have the conversation, answer questions, and yeah, and just be here tonight. Especially when I know that you're right in the home stretch of the election. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. Thank you for letting me come on and have the conversation. And please don't stop asking questions and holding whoever's in power, myself or anyone else, to account on all of the things that you've been asking. So I appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jazz.
All right, talk soon.